everyone, I'm Barbara Beck, your host of Welcome Home. Well, today is one of those times when we have a really special, life-changing story. This is a story of courage in the face of tremendous sadness. I can't even imagine a more difficult challenge than losing a child. Berryl Battle is here with us today to tell the heart-wrenching story of her precious daughter, her only child. Listen as Berryl shares with us just 2 weeks after Alicia went home to be with Jesus. Living courageously for Christ often takes supernatural intervention, and that's what we have today with our guest. Berryl Battle has recently had an enormous tragedy in her life, and yet she is this smiling, at peace, wonderful mother who has her story to tell, a life-changing story that is hopefully going to impact you, give you encouragement, and maybe give you the kind of hope that we always talk about here at Good Life 45, where hope happens in Jesus Christ. And Berryl Battle, I'm just so grateful to God for your coming to tell your story, because your story is one of hope and peace and living life courageously. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
It's amazing because your sharing is pretty, I would say, raw. You have recently lost your daughter, and I mean, when I say recently, I mean in the last 2 weeks. So it's just, to me, amazing that you can even talk about it at this point. But first of all, tell us how we came to know about you through Courtney Shaw. Courtney Shaw is a good friend of yours.
Courtney is a great friend of ours. She's actually we consider Courtney family. We met through our pastors, the Shaws, and Alicia just fell in love with Courtney right off the bat. And we all did.
This was how many years ago that you met Courtney?
Oh.
A lot of years, though.
Yeah, at least, probably about 10, maybe 12 or so.
Because Alicia was, your daughter Alicia was her flower girl in her wedding, right?
Right. And Alicia, I think Alicia was 8 or 9 at that point. Yes. And so she was Courtney's flower girl with wings and little bell, and the bride is coming, the bride is coming.
Oh, you can see a picture of that, I'm sure, in your mind.
Definitely.
You know, when we talk about making memories, and we often talk about that in our family, Berryl, how, oh, I hope this is a memory that's going to really stick with us. That kind of visual, you can see your precious little Alicia walking down the aisle with her angel wings and ringing a bell that the bride is coming. Now, did she have health problems at that time?
No, Alicia had not experienced any health problems. She had a couple of colds, I think a flu once, and that was it until 2009.
Okay. And what happened in 2009?
I picked her up from school one day. Actually, it was a Friday, and she was always volunteering. And she had volunteered for the Relay for Life. And she called me that Friday night and said, you know, Mom, I'm having problems, you know, I feel like I can't really breathe. And I said, well, they were camping outside. It was cool outside for a Florida May night. And I said, well, you know, try to readjust yourself. And, you know, maybe you're lying flat. You need to lie elevated a little bit. And I said, but call me if you need me to come and pick you up. And so she didn't call me until that morning. She says, oh, I felt better. And I went to pick her up from school that Wednesday. I was ill that Wednesday, and I went to pick her up from school. And she had just walked from the front door of the school to the vehicle, which was, we were right in the little pickup
carpool line, yes.
Right. And she was breathing as if she had run a mile just to get to the car.
Wow.
And I said, you know, so are you feeling okay? And she says, I don't know why I'm so winded. And, you know, at first I was just going to pass it off and say, okay, well, you know, maybe let's just get you home. But my spirit said, no, you need to take her to the doctor. And her doctor's office was right down the street. So I ended up taking her to Centric Care. I had recently changed jobs, and so, of course, you know, insurance purposes. So I took her to the Centric Care. And when they checked her blood pressure was really high. And
now how old is she at this time?
At this point, she's 15.
15 years old.
15, finishing up her sophomore year at Ocoee High School. And they started taking her blood pressure sitting up. You know, we'll come and lay down, and the doctor came, and of course, now she's getting a little more excited, and so the blood pressure is elevating by the moment. And the doctor comes in and he says, I'm sorry, we're going to have to send her to the emergency room. Her blood pressure was, I think, 199 over 140 something at that point. Wow. By the time we got her to the hospital, her blood pressure was like 231 over 158. And the, I can't remember what his title is, emergency physician, says, you know, if this were you or I, we would be having a stroke at this point. He said, but from the mere fact that she's talking to me like we're talking indicates, at this age, indicates that it's a renal issue. It's a kidney issue. And he said, so we will proceed from here on that premise.
Just doing some tests and trying to figure out why her kidneys, or her kidney was failing her, or kidneys.
Her kidneys were failing her at that point, because the kidneys regulate the blood pressure. And they ran some tests, and next thing I know, they're talking, you know, dialysis, and in my mind, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Slow down. You know, this is a perfectly healthy child.
Yes.
Right.
And she's saying, you know, I'm fine. Oh. I feel fine.
Even with the high blood pressure, she felt okay.
Yes. And what the doctor explained, he says her blood pressure had probably been elevating, and her body had just been adjusting to it. So, yes, so she was functioning, you know, pretty well with that, although that is not where her blood pressure needed to be. And if it had been caught a little earlier, we might have caught it a little earlier, but she had just been to the doctor for her well visit that August. So we're only talking a span of from August to May. Right. At this point.
No reason to suspect.
So no reason to suspect.
Now, did you have kidney, anything in your background with
I don't have any kidney issues.
Or
my mom, her dad didn't have any kidney issues. Now, my mom had a kidney problem and has one kidney
to this day
that she's functioning with.
Okay.
But other than that, nothing. And so, and like I said, Alicia had never had any other, major health issues. Right. So this is totally coming to us blindsided.
A shock.
And yes, and she looks good. She looks healthy. She was on the tennis team. She, so there were several. She was very active. So we had no reason to think up to that point that anything was taking place with her physically.
It sounds like at that point you're a Christian, because you're really listening to the Lord. You said, and that's what I want our viewers to hear, and myself to hear too. If we hear that check in our spirit, I was kind of like you as a mom. I'd be like, oh, you have a cold? Okay, you'll be okay. You're all right, and not taking anything seriously. But to listen to that teeny tiny, small, quiet voice of God that says, there might be a problem here. I applaud you for that you listened. That was great, Berryl.
I thank God for it, because I think had I not listened, I mean,
you would have lost her earlier, probably.
Right. We only, he only knows what would have happened at that point.
So she needs dialysis at this point.
So she needs dialysis, and they're taking her in for a dialysis catheter, and they're, running this test and that test, and then I'm thinking, well, what on earth causes a kidney failure when she's never had kidney problems before? So then they started testing her for lupus, and the test did come back positive for lupus. And the whole time, Alicia's like, I am not sick, I am well, I am healed. The entire time she's like, I'm healed, I don't care what you say.
Because she knows Jesus too, right?
Yes, she accepted the Lord at an early age. And so she's been involved, with children's church and, ever since she was 5. So she's like, I'm healed, I'm not accepting any of this. And Mom, I don't know what they're talking about, I feel fine. And so,
so what is lupus exactly? Is that an autoimmune disease?
It's an autoimmune disease. And a lot of times, usually it's hereditary. So usually you'll find it running in families. But as far as we know, we didn't have lupus that ran in our family. But it mimics other, it could cause, it will attack your major organs.
And that's what happened with the
and so
with the kidneys.
So you
were saying as a mom you were feeling what?
Yeah, as a mom I'm feeling you know, I know, Alicia, you know, I know you look good. I know you feel good. And yes, we believe the word of God. We believe the word that you are healed.
Yes.
You know, I said, but sometimes this flesh, you know, has to go through some things. And so we just need to find out how we need to pray. Right. So allow them to do the test. Let's find out how we need to pray.
Good.
And I think a lot of times we say we're healed, and instead of, we don't want to hear what the doctors are saying, but God gave us the doctors for a reason. And so you know, even though there's that struggle, you know, it's like, okay, let me hear what the doctors are saying. Let me know how I need to pray. And we'll just have to do what we need to do, and we'll continue to listen to the Lord. And He's guided us up to this point. So why should we doubt Him at this point? And so she went through the dialysis. So she started hemodialysis, came home one day, fever of 105. We ended up taking her back to the emergency room. And I don't really know, I can't remember what they said she had, but at any rate, throughout that process, she was allergic, found out she was allergic to a medication, ended up having a stroke, went into cardiac arrest, and even in that process, the room that she was in was the nurse's station. There was nobody outside, nobody outside. My mom had just gone, we went in the hospital with her that day, it was a Sunday. We went in the hospital with her that day, and my mom had gone out to ask the nurse something. And my mom says, gosh, there was nobody out there. So I'm like, okay. I said, well, they should be back in a little while. Nobody was outside, but the moment she had her stroke, my mom ran out, and her doctors, her actual doctors were running down the hallway with the nurses. Wow. So they caught it just as it onset.
See, that's not by chance at all.
No. And I said, Lord, and you know, and we just prayed, and then she went into cardiac arrest then, and she was at ICU. They put her in a medically induced coma, and she was at ICU then, and she was at ICU from the beginning of June until July, sometime, when they started bringing her out of the medically induced coma. She didn't respond the way that they thought she would. She was just like an infant. So when she opened her eyes, she looked, but she looked at me, and it was like
not sure she knew.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, you know, you look familiar, but not really fully recognizing who I was. Right. And she didn't talk. It was as if she was going through the infant stage, and so she went through those stages all within that month and a half. And finally, they moved her. She moved into another room. And one of her doctors, the one that she was speaking with when she first was admitted to the hospital, I said, Alicia, I said, there's Dr. Getz, Dr. Godshaw. And she looked, I said, surprise him. And she looked at him, and she smiled, and she waved.
Oh. And
they were in awe that she had come through the way she had come through. Right. And then, long story short, she was discharged, and that was the year that the swine flu broke out. So they would not let her go back to school, needless to say.
Yes.
And so she spent her 11th grade year homeschooling, which she did very well with. And then her senior year, in this meantime, she's still going through the dialysis. She's doing that 3 times a week.
That's tough, too.
It was tough. And you know, this time though, she rebounded pretty good, though. Usually you hear people going through dialysis and they're drained, they're really tired, and
but she did well
with
dialysis.
Well with that.
So that was when she was about 16 years old.
So that was 16.
And I would call that, and you would call that, a near-death experience that she had, having had the stroke, having had kidney failure. Is she, in the next 5 years, continuing to have to take dialysis?
She had a kidney transplant.
She had a kidney transplant. Tell us about that. Now, how did they find a kidney for her?
We went through a deceased donor. So some family, bless their hearts.
Yes.
And, you know, I thank God for them, and I pray for them even to this day. So she got a donor kidney, so we got that phone call at like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were running around the house and dancing and skipping around. And so she received the donor kidney in 2011, which was the same year she had graduated high school.
That's great.
So it was a great graduation present. And she, at that point, she was enrolled in Adventist University of Health Sciences, and she was enjoying school. And then she started experiencing some problems, some rejection issues with that kidney, and ended up going back on to dialysis. But this time we were doing it at home, and her doctor said, well, this would be great for you to do at home, because she was very careful and meticulous about keeping everything clean, and they wanted her to have as much liberty as she could, being her age. And so she's continued the peritoneal dialysis at home, which was what she was on up until recently.
Right. Okay, so she's gone through the dialysis, and now she has another medical incident that puts her in the hospital. I mean, we're talking now recently. Right. Take us to just this past summer.
Okay, so a couple of times she had, with the catheter, with the peritoneal dialysis, there's a catheter that's inserted in your abdomen. And what happens is there's solution that is pumped into your peritoneal cavity, which is the cavity that holds all of your organs, all of our organs. And it will stay there for a period of time, and then the machine will drain it out. Well, she had a couple of infections with that, which had put her into the hospital. But most recently, on the 15th, Alicia was actually, she was enrolled in cosmetology school.
This is the 15th of
July.
July.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. She was enrolled in cosmetology school. This was the last day for her class, and she had enjoyed her time with her classmates, and they had gone to eat, and I told her, I said, do you need me to come and pick you up for church? Because Alicia was very active in our church with our children's ministry, as I stated. And she says, no, I'll just meet you at church. And so I met her at church, and she ran up to me and she says, hi, Mommy. She says, I had a great day. I was like, yeah, what did you guys do? And she told me about her day and how she enjoyed her day with her classmates and her teachers. And she had gotten her hair flat ironed, you know, because in cosmetology there's always something that you're doing with your hair.
Of course.
And so she got highlights and everything, and she's like, how you like my hair? I was like, well, it looks beautiful. And we went on into the sanctuary, and I said, okay. I said, well, you know, worship is about to start. I said, so I'll see you in a little bit. Are you going to be working with the children, you know, today? She said, yeah. She says, yeah, I'm going to be in the classroom. So I said, okay, great. I said, well, give me a kiss. And so she gave me a kiss. I love you. I said, I love you too. And she went into the classroom, and I went into the sanctuary. And towards the end of the worship service, one of the deacons came and got me. He says, we need you in the classroom. I'm thinking, well, Apostles have an altar call, you know, I'm thinking. He's like, no, we need you in the back. I said, okay. So I ran to the back in the classroom, and she was laying on the floor, and I said, well, you know, I mean, well, I didn't ask at that point.
But you're thinking, what in the world?
But I'm thinking, what in the world happened? And she was non-responsive, so we were performing CPR. We called 911, and they came. And my mom wasn't feeling well that day. So my mom had not come to worship with us. But my mom, bless her, locked herself out of the house walking the dog and had come to the church, and she saw Alicia. And Alicia said, Grandma, I thought you weren't feeling well. She says, well, I'm not Alicia, but I locked myself out of the house. Can I use your house key? Alicia says, yeah. So she says, hold on a moment, I don't have it on me. Let me go into the classroom. And so Pastor David, who was in the classroom, he and Elder Wilda said she came in and she looked at the table. She was like, oh, what in the world did I do with my keys? And he said she turned around and to walk out the door, and then she turned back around, and he said she just kind of, like she had a seizure, and then she just collapsed. And that was that was that.
But she saw her grandmother.
But she saw her grandmother.
And she saw you.
And she saw me, and she was working with the children.
Yeah, and doing what she loved
Doing what
to
she
do.
loved, and she looked radiant
Oh,
that day. I've not seen her look that well in a very long time. So to me, that was just God just showing His glory on her.
That's right.
And
so she goes to the hospital, and how long is she in the hospital before she
goes to the hospital? She's in the hospital a week.
A week.
Yes.
And Jesus calls her home.
And the Lord says,
did she ever come out of her coma, or did
she never came out of the sedation? And the
Berryl,
doctors,
the last thing you said to her was that you love her.
I love her.
I
Yeah,
love that.
I got a kiss on top of that.
Oh, I just think that is such a gift.
And she's 21. I still got a kiss.
Oh,
I
Berryl.
think that,
that just gave me chills. I love that.
It
is.
How privileged. What a privilege that was. And her grandma got a kiss, too.
Yeah.
And so what a privilege for that.
Yes.
And I just thank God. I mean, it's sad. I miss her.
Of course.
You know, even in the hospital, you know, she had a couple of things going on. They weren't sure if the seizure is what caused, you know, they really weren't sure. But they would give her a lot of medications for her heart. And the cardiologist had told me, she says, you know, even if she comes out of this, her heart is so weak. And we have a lot of medication that we are pumping, helping to keep her heart pumping.
Sure.
If we remove the medication, sisters, I really don't think that Alicia would make it for long. And I said, okay. And, you know, I said, but Alicia's faith is what kept me going. It was her faith that kept me going. I mean, I have faith in God. I trust Him implicitly. And, but her faith strengthened my faith. And we had conversations before. She had told her dad lives here too. She had told her dad, like, if it ever comes to a point where machines are keeping me alive, that's not life, that's existence. She says, you know, I believe that if God wants me to be here, He will raise me up. He'll raise me up whole once you take me off. And then if He doesn't, and it's my time to go home and be with Jesus, then I'll be raised up whole. And so it's a win-win situation. And
well, just the fact that she had that conversation with you, that is amazing.
Well, because she faced some medical issues that not a lot of us have to face, especially not at her age.
But what a gift to give to you that peace to know that, because you had to make that decision to take her off life support at some point.
We did.
And you were okay with that.
And yeah, and her dad and I talked. I mean, he was there when the doctors told us, and you know, it was difficult to hear, but we knew what she wanted. You know, I wouldn't have wanted that, and we knew what she wanted. And because we knew what she wanted, we had to honor her in that, because Alicia did not complain. I think she cried to me twice out of the 7 years or 6 years that she's been going through this. Twice.
Do you know, Berryl, that there's so many things going through my mind that I'd just like to talk to you about, and we won't have time to talk about all of them, but this whole show is about living life courageously. And the coolest thing, besides talking to you as a courageous mom of an only child that you gave up to Jesus, and that takes an enormous amount of courage, but I want to make sure our viewers hear Alicia's story too, and the courage that she had to live her life in the face of illness, adversity, not feeling good, not being able to be a normal teenager and a 21-year-old when she finally did go home to be with Jesus. That to me, I mean, you're speaking to me as a mom to a mom. I relate with you. I love you. I admire you. I'm blown away by your story, but I'm also blown away by Alicia's courage.
She, I can say twice out of all this time, you know, I'm like, Alicia, it's okay to cry sometimes, because I don't know that I would be as strong as you are. I don't know that I would be able to go to school. I mean, she, you know, would go to school and she would get her schoolwork done, she'd get her homework done. And I mean, she just, and she just poured out. She poured out to people, she poured out to her friends, you know, how important it was to, you know, to have a relationship with the Lord, and her family members she poured out to. Even in some of her worst days, she was pouring out. and saying, you know, develop a relationship with the Lord, develop a relationship with God. Wow. And she was always encouraging, and we had her celebration on Sunday.
2 nights ago. I want our viewers to hear that. 2 nights ago, the celebration of her life happened, and you're here today telling the story. That's courageous.
Well, you know what? That's what she would want. You know, she wanted she wanted people to celebrate, because she was celebrating within herself, being home with the Lord. So that was her 22nd birthday, was August 9th.
She became an organ donor also, right?
And she became an organ donor.
That's amazing.
The moment that they told us, you know, when we made the decision, the trans life people came in and said, you know, Alicia wanted to be an organ donor. I had totally forgotten about that.
Wow.
And I said, oh, Alicia, you get to be an organ donor. You know? And she was a little concerned about that because of all the health issues that she had.
Yeah.
And so she was able to donate her liver and her corneas and some other tissue.
Praise
and
God.
I know she was so excited because we were the recipients. You know, some family, you know, gave up their child's organ so that she could have life. And so now she gives hers so that other people can live. So she still lives.
That's
not only in my heart, but, you know, somebody has her liver, somebody has her corneas. And so it's, you know, God has been awesome. He's just been so awesome in this whole process.
You know what, though? God is awesome, but you are awesome, too. To be able to tell your story like you're telling it, can you see yourself walking through the rest of your life now from this day forward? How are you going to do it? How are you going to live life without Alicia?
You know, Alicia was such an encouragement to me. Such an encouragement to me. And, you know, I'm going to live my life as the Lord will have me live her. And one of the last things she wrote, it was a mission statement, and she said she wanted to be all that God had called her to be. And that's my mission statement, to be all that God's called me to be, even through struggles. I mean, how else do we witness of God's grace and His mercy, His love, if we don't continue to live life for Him and to share our testimonies? The Word says, you know, we're overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. And so Alicia was such an encouragement. She would want me to do that. And so this opportunity is a tribute to her and her courage to walk through the things that she walked through, you know, to me. And so her courage gives me courage. So.
Berryl Battle, I love you, girl. You're an amazing, amazing witness to me, and your precious daughter, Alicia Battle, as well, will continue to live on in our hearts and our minds, and of course, even physically through the organs that she donated. I hope this story today has been an encouragement to you, viewers. I know, I'm sure that if you call us here at the station, if you need a phone number, if you need someone to help you, if you're going through something similar, you have a crisis in your life, we're here to minister to you. We are Good Life 45, where hope happens. Again, that hope happens only in Jesus Christ.